Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa. Tonight in Uganda, the man hoping to break Yoweri Museveni's 30-year grip on the presidency is briefly arrested. Social media sites are shut down as voters cast their ballots under the gaze of riot police. Also, dozens are killed in what's already reckoned to be one of Ghana's worst ever road disasters. A passenger bus runs headfirst into a tomato truck and at least 60 lose their lives. And the strongest El Niño weather phenomenon on record is wreaking havoc across East Africa. Ethiopia has been particularly badly affected, with over 10 million people without enough to eat. Well, the top opposition candidate in Uganda's presidential election was once more briefly detained by police on Thursday. It's the second time in 4 days that Kizza Besigye has been arrested. His camp says that he was held on Thursday as he tried investigating claims of vote tampering. Well, polling at least 2 stations didn't happen at all after angry would-be voters threw allegedly pre-stuffed ballot boxes into the streets. The election is thought to be one of the toughest President Yoweri Museveni will have faced in his 30 years in power. But despite calls for change, he's widely expected to win. Our correspondent spoke with voters in Kampala throughout the day.
Ugandans patiently await their democratic right. Among them, Eric. He voted for Museveni because, he says, the president has invested in hospitals and the police force, services that saved his life after he was hit by a train 5 years ago.
I wouldn't see the train, but I heard the sound. So it hit me too late after realizing I was down. I was unconscious. So the police took me to hospital and I was treated very well.
But after 30 years in power, many people here in the capital think it's time for the president to go.
Maybe if it's a fair election, if power changes, that would be good. I have a feeling this time around power will change.
In some areas, people were still awaiting voting materials in the early afternoon. Many were unable to access social media, blocked, the authorities say, to stop rumours spreading. Frustration boiled over, security forces firing tear gas to disperse people who were further enraged when boxes allegedly turned up with ballots already stuffed inside.
We kept on waiting for the ballot boxes and the officials, and they weren't coming. We waited up to 1. So when they brought the ballot boxes, the boxes were already open, and some ballots were ticked in favor of some candidates. So people were mad.
Despite such localised incidents, most people, at least in the capital, were able to cast their ballots. Here in the district of Kabala-Gala, the voting materials didn't arrive until after midday, more than 5 hours late, and originally voting was supposed to stop at 4. However, anyone in line by 4 o'clock was being allowed to vote.
In one of the country's worst ever road accidents, at least 61 people were killed and dozens more badly hurt when a bus slammed head-on into a truck in Ghana late Wednesday. It happened in the town of Kintampu. An investigation has already begun. Our Katerina Vitozzi tells us more.
It's the single deadliest traffic accident to happen in Ghana for years. The accident happened just outside the northern town of Kintampo at around 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday. And it was a collision between a passenger bus, which was travelling between 2 cities, and a lorry, which was heavy with goods. Emergency services said that the majority of victims died at the scene, including the driver of the passenger bus. Now, witnesses said to police that the passenger bus seemed to be having a problem with its braking mechanisms, but a spokesperson from the company which runs the bus service, Metro Mass Transit, says it is simply too early to say that it was a mechanical fault.
After the investigation, which will end by the end of the month, we'll have the reports and we'll know what really caused the crash. It's very safe to travel on our buses. We have monthly checks that we do on the buses. We have daily pre-checks before the bus moves. And so our passengers can trust us. We are safe, reliable, as we've been awarded by the National Road Safety Commission 2015, the whole of Ghana, the best transport company.
For years, campaigners here in Ghana have been working towards making the country's roads safer. In the first 6 months of last year alone, according to government figures, nearly 1,000 people died in road traffic accidents. Lobbyists want there to be greater restrictions and regulations to make sure that vehicles and their drivers are safe to be on the road.
Katerina Ritozzi there for us in Ghana. Now, French Prime Minister Manuel Valls headed to Bamako on Thursday at the start of a 3-day trip to the region. He'll also be visiting Burkina Faso and meet with the leaders of both nations to discuss the growing reach of Islamist militants who were once confined mainly to northern Mali. Burkina Faso has suffered through deadly extremist attacks this year. Aid group Médecins Sans Frontières says that 2 of its staff are amongst 18 people killed in fighting at a UN peacekeeping base in South Sudan. Battling between Dinka and Shilluk communities reportedly happened near the northeastern town of Malakal overnight into Thursday. Thousands of civilians are sheltering at the camp. Since 2013, the country's been caught up in a civil war pitting supporters of President Salva Kiir against those backing his ex-number 2, Riek Machar. The strongest El Niño weather phenomenon on record is wreaking havoc across East Africa. Ethiopia has been particularly badly affected. Over 10 million people, around 10% of the population, now depend on food aid, and over 2 million don't get enough to eat. Our correspondent has the story.
Dead crops and dead livestock dot the landscape in many parts of Ethiopia. The country has been hit by the worst drought in decades. Already over 400,000 people are at risk of starvation. This 1.5-year-old boy is one of several infants being treated for severe malnutrition at this government-run health post.
The food aid we are getting from the government is not enough. We are a family of 10, but only half of us got food rations. You see, I don't have enough milk to feed my child.
The drought brings back painful memories of the 1985 famine, which killed hundreds of thousands. But this time things are different. The government is leading relief efforts and insists that its ambitious development agenda remains on track.
The areas which are mainly affected by the drought have hardly contributed to the country's gross national product in the past. There will be little impact in terms of affecting the actual production capacity of the country.
Yet such statements highlight part of the problem. Over 80% of the population depends on rain-fed subsistence farming, but little has been invested to improve their productivity and lessen their vulnerability to climate change. The government now wants to build more irrigation schemes, but that may take time many farmers simply do not have.
We need the government to help us now. We really don't have anything left to eat. The planting season is coming, but even if it rains this time, I don't have any seeds left because my last harvest failed.
Only about half of the $1.4 billion in aid required has been secured. Unless more funding comes soon, the long-term impact of this drought could get much worse.
The editor of a controversial book penned by the former girlfriend of Cameroonian football star Samuel Eto'o says that they will be appealing against an injunction. Eto'o managed to get the publishing of Natalie Coa's tell-all called Revenge Porn shut down. It had been due to go on sale in France on Thursday. Now, the Cameroonian press has headlined on the steamy standoff. In it, the 29-year-old author tells of the affair she had with the married footballer before their breakup in 2014. Now, speaking to France 24, she claims that he leaked intimate photos of her online and that she wrote the book not for revenge, but in order to warn young girls off the idea of celebrity hookups.
I think in Africa today, we haven't done enough to raise awareness among women. I myself have lived like a prisoner in the gilded cage. The fact that I ended up in this situation is not just the fault of the person who put me into it, but also because I didn't say stop when I needed to. So you should have the courage to say stop when you find yourself in a situation that is no longer consistent with your conscience.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and please do so again if you can. Take care.